Welcome to Washington in Focus. I'm your host, Brett Davis, the Center Square's Washington State editor. Joining me today is reporter Spencer Pauley. So you've written a shocking story about a new law meant to boost the number of electricians in Washington. You spoke to some small electrical contractors who say the new law is hurting them and benefiting big contractors and unions. Tell us about this law.
Well, it might come as a shock to listeners to know that a Senate bill from Washington might not be so great. So let me first start off. Senate Bill 5320, which was sponsored by Senator Rebecca Saldana, went into effect on July 1st. Now, what this law does is requires applicants for a journey-level electrician certificate to complete an approved apprenticeship program. This includes 8,000 hours worth of electrical work. Half of that has to be commercial work. Now, Saldana said that this legislation is intended to boost the electrician workforce, but the people I spoke to say that is probably not going to be the case.
So who did you speak to?
So I spoke to two small electrical contractors based in Bellingham, Chris Scherer from North Wave Electric and Tim Rockwell from Rockwell Electric.
And I understand that they are not happy about this new law.
No, they are not. And so let me explain here. With the new law, a small electrical contractor can essentially only hire a new trainee to work on a commercial jobs through an approved apprenticeship program. Now, there are two options. There is the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Union, and then there is the Construction Industry Training Council of Washington. Now, for non-union partners, they will have to go through the latter. Now, the Construction Industry Training Council of Washington only has 6 locations, most of them on the western side of Washington. And they will dispatch whoever they feel is right for the job to small electrical contractors. And what I heard from the two people I interviewed is that they don't know who they're getting. They could get someone close to them in Bellingham, or they can get someone all the way from Spokane. It is up to the council's discretion.
Kind of sounds like a crapshoot from their point of view.
Yeah, and I think one thing to think about here, and by the time this story is up for listeners, I will have the follow-up piece about the application process for anyone trying to enter these apprenticeship programs. They will have to attend 2 4-hour in-person classes throughout the week for 4 years. Now, there are only 6 locations to go through if they do not want to join the union. So you figure in a traveling cost and working an 8 to 10 hour day beforehand just to attend these night classes. Does that sound like a electrifying job to you?
It does not. I don't even know how they would do that. It just seems impractical. I mean, I'm not an electrician, but it seems like it would be impractical to get to those classes while you're working.
Yeah, and let's stick to the small electrical contractor side of this. There are just a little less than 3,000 contractors within the state. Now, roughly 87% of them are small businesses. So they will have to balance commercial and residential work to hit the required 4,000 hours dedicated to commercial work for their apprentices. So think about anyone trying to start their own electrician contracting business. How are you going to get so many commercial jobs to start? And to balance that is the big issue that I'm hearing from the two people I interviewed.
Yeah, the math doesn't seem to add up. Mr. Rockwell, he ended up spending $30,000 basically for nothing. Can you tell us about that? How'd that happen?
Yeah, so independent contractors can start their own apprenticeship programs, but there are a lot of hoops to jump through. Mr. Rockwell tried to apply to start his own, but through a series of events going through the state to just receive an approval, a recommendation for an approval, he was objected by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Union. So he had to pull out $30,000 in attorney fees just for this hearing that was supposed to happen in June. The day before the hearing, the union folded and sent a settlement agreement instead.
So basically he spent all that money for nothing.
Yes, exactly.
That's quite a move by the union.
Yeah, and they objected to it on a range of reasons, Mr. Rockwell told me. But basically, any apprenticeship program that is within the same region as anyone trying to start can object to it on just for any reasons. Huh. And then there's a lot of hoops to jump through after that. So
Did you get the sense from talking to him that the union did this on purpose? Were they just trying to make him bleed money, or did they just decide they didn't want to go through with this and it was just happenstance?
He told me, he hinted that it was an intimidation tactic from the union. That's what he hinted to me here. Now, I think another thing I would like to touch on about this is that there are your technical colleges and your community colleges that have electrician programs. Now, these programs, anyone that goes through them, they don't carry over to the apprenticeship program. So all that time and hours spent going to school for this, you're essentially relearning it when you go through an apprenticeship program again. So I talked to Chris Scherer about this, and he says essentially technical colleges, there's going to be no reason for them. There's going to be no need. So they're going to lose out on students and basically fold, because you're going to have so many people wanting to get in the trade just skipping that and going into the apprenticeship program where they will get paid doing so.
So it sounds like from these two contractors that this law is having some unintended consequences.
Yes. And I asked both of them if they've reached out to Senator Saldana, and they said they did. And based on the talks they've had, Saldana truly believes that this legislation will boost the electrician workforce. But, they really disagree. And the main thing they say is there's a small community of small contractors really speaking out against this. And they really told me that there needs to be more in order for legislators to understand what they're going through and how it hurts their business, and in turn lowers and minimizes the electrician workforce.
And did you reach out to Saldana to try and get a comment from her?
I did. I sent a long email amongst all of these issues that both electrician contractors had, and I have not received a response yet.
Well, maybe she'll get back to you for a future story. We can always hope.
We can hope, yes.
Well, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed on this. We look forward to your continued reporting on this issue. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Spencer Pauly, this is Brett Davis. Please subscribe, and thanks so much for listening.